The sun bled red across the desert horizon when the battle ended. Smoke rose from the canyon, the air thick with gunpowder and sweat. The cowboy, Eli Turner, stood with his rifle still smoking, breath ragged. Around him lay the aftermath of a raid gone wrong. Bandits who tried to take Apache land. He hadn't meant to get involved, but when he saw the outnumbered warriors and women fighting for their lives, he couldn't ride away. Now his shirt was torn, his arm bleeding, and the tribe he'd just saved watched him in wary silence. Eli wiped the dust from his brow and lowered his gun. He expected anger, maybe even death. But instead, the Apache chief approached, his gaze deep and unreadable. "You fought with courage," the chief said slowly, his English rough but clear. Eli nodded, unsure what to say. He wasn't looking for thanks. He had only done what felt right. But the chief motioned for him to follow. Together, they walked through the camp, past burned wagons, frightened children, and grieving mothers. Eli had seen war before, but this was different. These were people defending their home. That night, the tribe buried their dead under a moon as white as bone. Eli helped dig graves beside men who hours ago had aimed arrows at him. When it was done, the chief sat with him by the fire, offering a clay cup of bitter tea. "You could have left," the old man said. "Most white men do." Eli stared into the flames. "I've done enough running," he answered quietly. The chief studied him for a long time, then nodded. A man who stands for others deserves to stand among them. At dawn, the tribe gathered to honor their fallen. Women sang soft, mourning songs that carried through the canyon like wind. Eli stood at the edge, hat in hand, ready to ride on. But as he turned to mount his horse, the chief called out to him. "Eli Turner," he said, his voice strong, "you have saved my people. You have earned a reward." The cowboy shook his head. "I didn't do it for that." The chief raised a hand. "Still, it is yours." He looked around, then motioned toward the women standing behind him. "Choose whichever of my daughters you want. You deserve it." Eli froze. The air seemed to stop moving. The women, 4 of them, looked at him curiously, some shy, some bold. His chest tightened. "Chief," he said carefully, "I didn't come here for a wife." The old man's eyes softened but stayed firm. "A man alone cannot carry peace. You saved life. You should have life." The tribe murmured, approving his words. Eli looked at them all, proud, strong, and silent, and felt something shift inside him. He wasn't sure if it was fear or awe. "May I think on it?" he asked. The chief smiled. "You may." For days, Eli stayed in the village, his injured arm healing under the care of the women. The youngest daughter, Lita, laughed the most, teasing him as he tried to eat their food with shaking hands. The eldest, Sani, watched him closely. Calm, wise, her eyes like still water. It was she who brought him herbs for his wounds and listened when he spoke of the towns he'd left behind. "Why do you wander?" she asked one night. Eli stared at the stars. "Because nowhere ever wanted me to stay." Sani smiled faintly. "Maybe you haven't found the right ground yet." Each morning, Eli worked alongside the Apache men, mending fences and rounding up the tribe's surviving horses. Slowly, their suspicion faded. The children followed him, laughing at his accent and teaching him words in their language. At night, he sat by the fire with Sani, listening to her stories of the land, stories older than his country itself. He felt something growing between them, quiet and unspoken. It wasn't the love of youth, but under the blood-red sky of the Arizona frontier, a lone cowboy rode through a land scarred by conflict. His name was Eli Turner, a drifter who had seen too much death and too little mercy. The war between settlers and the Apache tribes had left both sides bleeding. But that day, fate led him into something neither bullets nor hatred could explain: redemption. The sun dipped low as Eli followed a trail of smoke rising from a narrow canyon. What he found there turned his stomach, an Apache village under attack by outlaws, posing as bounty hunters. He didn't think. He simply acted. Rifle in hand, he charged into the chaos. His shots were quick and precise, cutting through the raiders. By the time the smoke cleared, half the attackers were down, and the rest fled into the desert. Eli fell to one knee, bleeding from his shoulder. Around him, Apache women and children cried softly, clutching what was left of their homes. From the far end of the camp, a tall, silver-haired man emerged, the Apache chief, his presence commanding and proud. Two warriors supported him as he approached Eli. "Why?" the chief asked, his deep voice carrying over the silence. Eli winced, gripping his wound. "Because wrong's wrong," he muttered. "Didn't matter who it was." The chief looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "You fought like one of us," he said solemnly. "You will not die here." He ordered his men to carry Eli into a tent where his daughters tended his wounds. For 3 days, he drifted between pain and fever, the sound of drums echoing in his dreams. Each time he woke, a young woman sat nearby. Her name was Ayana, the chief's eldest daughter, with eyes like midnight and a voice that calmed the storm inside.